If we think of a truck as a colossal metal organism, then each axle is a limb, specialized legs that connect the still world of the road to the dynamic world inside the engine. But one limb is stranger than all the others, an axle weighing hundreds of kilograms, complete with tires, brakes, and air suspension, yet frequently not touching the ground at all. It hangs suspended in midair, as if refusing to perform its duty. A passerby might assume it is broken or forgotten during maintenance. In reality, it is a feature that has evolved to resolve the fundamental contradictions of modern freight transport. For much of engineering history, machines followed a simple philosophy: more strength is always better. Road transport, however, must survive in a world where every ton of payload becomes a burden on infrastructure. Every tire contact generates a road maintenance bill, and every molecule of fuel must be optimized under global competitive pressure. Trucks must be powerful enough to carry tens of tons, yet gentle and efficient when running empty. A steel beast forced to maintain two opposing forms at once. The lift axle is the adaptive organ that resolves this conflict. It allows the vehicle to change shape over time, an ability no biological organism truly possesses. When needed, it grows an extra pair of legs to distribute load. When unnecessary, it retracts them, much like a biological system adjusting its center of mass. Behind this behavior is not mechanical whim, but a complex coordination of aerodynamics, materials science, economics, and automation. To understand why a machine weighing dozens of tons carries a component it uses only half the time, we must pass through 4 layers of logic where engineering and economic survival intersect. In traditional design philosophy, redundancy is treated as the enemy of optimization. Carrying a component weighing hundreds of kilograms that remains unused for long stretches seems like unjustifiable waste. But modern engineering, especially in large-scale transport, embraces a counterintuitive idea: active redundancy. Redundancy as strategy. The lift axle embodies that strategy. It does not exist merely just in case, but to support entirely opposite operating states. A fully loaded truck spreads its weight across multiple contact points. Each lowered axle acts like an additional support column, dispersing stress and reducing strain on both road surface and vehicle frame. But when the truck runs empty, those columns become redundant, structurally unnecessary, and economically harmful, adding drag and operating cost. A similar phenomenon appears in bird migration. Before long flights, birds accumulate fat as reserve energy. That extra mass makes them heavier and slower, but it is essential for survival over oceans. As the journey progresses, the stored energy burns off, the body lightens, and aerodynamic performance changes. A biological system that adjusts weight over time. Trucks do not have that biological privilege. Steel does not burn itself away. Frames cannot shrink, but lift axles serve as a kind of artificial genetic switch, allowing trucks to simulate adaptive mass behavior by altering how weight interacts with the road. This form of active redundancy is not an engineering accident. It is the solution to a contradiction faced by every large transport company. How can one vehicle be strong enough to carry 40 tons, yet light and efficient enough to run empty without wasting fuel? The lift axle does not change total mass, but it changes how that mass is distributed, how many points bear force, and how much energy the vehicle must expend. In this sense, the lift axle functions like a synthetic evolutionary trait. It gives the truck 2 morphological states: a multi-limbed form for heavy loads, and a minimalist form for cost-efficient travel. What appears redundant is, in fact, the symbol of flexibility, the very quality every technical ecosystem must achieve to survive long-term. From here, the logic of the lift axle unfolds into the second layer: aerodynamics and fuel economics. For long-haul trucks, no cost is more persistent than fuel. Every wheel rotation is an energy exchange with air, pavement, and material resistance. Within this continuous flow, The lift axle becomes a tool for reshaping how the vehicle interacts with its environment. When the axle is raised, the airflow beneath the chassis changes immediately. The underbody region is normally an aerodynamic chaos zone, low pressure. Microvortices. Compressed airflow. Each wheel in contact with the road adds another source of turbulence. Reduce the number of wheels, and the airflow becomes cleaner and more stable. It is similar to antelopes tucking their limbs closer to the body during a sprint. Fewer protrusions mean less drag and lower energy loss. The largest gain, however, comes from rolling resistance. Every wheel on the ground creates a rubber deformation zone, and each deformation consumes energy. Rolling resistance is not just a slowing force, it is energy converted into heat inside polymer materials. By lifting an unnecessary axle, an empty truck can reduce fuel consumption by 2–3%. That figure sounds small, but multiplied across hundreds of vehicles, each traveling hundreds of thousands of kilometers per year, it becomes the difference between survival and bankruptcy. The lift axle also reshapes how gravity loads the remaining axles. Less load per axle means less rolling resistance. Experimental studies show that rolling resistance increases nearly linearly with axle load. By reversing load distribution logic when empty, a truck can behave like a lighter version of itself, even though its total mass has not changed. From an economic standpoint, the lift axle creates time-based optimization. The truck does not need to be in its best configuration at all times, only in the right configuration for the moment. This mirrors financial strategy, where assets are reallocated based on cycles and context. Mechanical engineering has adopted the same philosophy: minimize cost during non-productive phases. But beneath these economic benefits lies a harsher, microscopic world, the world of rubber, where every meter of road leaves a molecular scar. At the microscopic scale, tire surfaces are not smooth planes but tangled fields of polymer chains. Synthetic rubber consists of long hydrocarbon chains cross-linked by sulfur bonds, forming an elastic structure. That elasticity, however, is imperfect. Every wheel rotation flattens the contact patch, a process materials scientists call cyclic deformation. If the tire rolled purely forward, deformation would be predictable. Trouble begins when wheels are dragged sideways in turns, a phenomenon known as scrubbing. Lateral forces stretch polymer chains in directions they were never designed to handle. Bonds twist, molecules misalign, heat spikes, and the material briefly enters a semi-fluid state. Repeated millions of times, the tire surface tears into strips, much like wood fibers being ripped apart. Each fragment of polymer lost to the road is not just tire wear, it is a micro-scale financial cost. Studies show that a heavily scrubbed truck tire can lose several % of its lifespan in a single day of urban driving. This is why transport companies hate scrubbing, not because it feels bad to drive, but because it burns money. By reducing the number of wheels in contact with the road, lift axles dramatically reduce exposure to lateral forces. Each raised axle preserves a region of polymer. If tires were biological organs, the lift axle would be a conservation system, preventing cellular waste when function is unnecessary. Scrubbing also damages roads. Lateral forces tear asphalt, dislodging aggregate particles and forming micropits. Over time, these pits expand, surfaces harden, and potholes appear. By reducing scrubbing, lift axles protect not only vehicles but the infrastructure itself, a quiet symbiosis rarely noticed. But the story of lift axles does not end with mechanics and materials. It is entering a new phase, one shaped by artificial intelligence, real-time simulation, and self-optimizing machines. If 20th century lift axles were purely mechanical, 21st century lift axles are evolving into robotic limbs, with load sensors, accelerometers, electronic control units, and machine learning algorithms. Lift axles no longer rely on driver judgment. They read data and decide. Advanced systems measure frame deflection, airbag pressure, axle torque, and even road roughness. These inputs feed into a central controller that predicts the optimal next state. If load exceeds a threshold, the axle drops automatically. Enter a tight urban area, and the system may lift a rear axle to reduce turning radius. On a long, lightly loaded highway run, the axle lifts to minimize rolling resistance. These systems function like an extra sense faster, more sensitive, and more consistent than human perception. In the near future, manufacturers plan to integrate real-time maps, infrastructure data, and bridge health information. A truck could know a weak bridge lies ahead and lower its axle before the driver even sees the sign. The future goes further still. Researchers are developing independent electric axle modules, axles that not only lift and lower, but also regenerate energy during braking, assist acceleration, and redistribute torque to reduce energy loss. One day, a truck may truly change shape like a transforming robot, longer or shorter, more axles or fewer, based entirely on journey demands. If lift axles once symbolized mechanical adaptability, smart axles will symbolize autonomous adaptability systems that do not merely obey physics, but learn how to work with physics to optimize energy use, material durability, and economic efficiency. So when you see a lift axle hovering above the highway, you are not witnessing a minor mechanical trick. You are seeing the result of decades of technical evolution. In the conflict between economic survival and physical limits, the lift axle became the organ that allows trucks to change form from a load-bearing creature into a flexible, resource-conserving entity. At the physical level, it reduces friction, load, and wear. At the economic level, it reduces cost, taxes, and waste. At the system level, it extends road life and acts as a regulatory heartbeat between humans and infrastructure. No laws of physics are broken. What you see instead is engineering wisdom, the ability to find narrow spaces between constraints and exploit them to the fullest. Floating wheels do not ignore gravity. They demonstrate that thoughtful design can turn gravity into a partner, not an enemy.